A very warm welcome to the third episode of Quantum Marketing Sense Live on LinkedIn Live. My name is Raja Rajabannar. I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of MasterCard, and I'm also the President of MasterCard's healthcare business. I actually wrote a book called Quantum Marketing, which got published in February this year. And based on that, I started writing a blog on LinkedIn. And it has garnered about 70,000 subscribers so far, which is good to get the word out there. And this book is pretty, provocative, I would say, trying to challenge all the existing paradigms and frameworks and strategies of marketing the way we're practicing today, and say that we are about to enter the era, the next paradigm of marketing, which I call the fifth paradigm of marketing, where we need to reinvent, reimagine marketing completely. And that's what will ensure that marketers succeed and thrive in this new paradigm. As of the next sort of advancement of what we have been doing, what I have been doing is to start this LinkedIn Live session. And we had two sessions so far. The first one was with Antonio Lucio, the former CMO of Facebook. And the second one was with the CMO of Anheuser-Busch InBev, Pedro Irk. And today it is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome to the third episode, Michelle Peluso. Michelle Peluso, she is the Chief Customer Officer of CVS Health, a good friend, and I have known her since Citibank days. She had an extraordinary storied career, I would say, moving across different companies from Travelocity to Citigroup to Guild to IBM and now to CVS. And she's probably one of the most cutting edge CMOs that I can actually think in terms of. And I had the privilege of partnering with her on a number of industry-wide initiatives, particularly under the auspices of the ANA. So Michelle, thank you very much for joining today, and look forward to picking your brain and having a good conversation. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Raja. I am thrilled to be here. And once again, congratulations on the book. As you know, I have loved it and recommended it to many.
Thank you so much. Yes, I deeply value that, Michelle. Thank you so much. Now, I was talking about your storied career, which really I think is an inspiration for just about anyone, right? Whether it is somebody who is starting their career just now, or they are about to become CMOs, or anywhere in between. So, if you can just sort of walk the audience through what your career journey has been, and how did you come to where you are today, where you're not just, the title of Chief Customer Officer probably doesn't do full justice to the entire scope of what you do. You have actually 3 CMOs reporting to you, isn't it, in the group?
Yeah, that's right. So, it's in some ways my career journey has been pretty simple. I would say there's sort of 3 principles. One, I have loved being at the cutting edge of digital and consumer. And so that started with the travel industry. I started my own company and then Travelocity acquired us and became CEO of Travelocity. So that was sort of the first arc. It was true in banking, where I became Chief Marketing and Digital Officer of Citigroup, the consumer business. And again, had the opportunity to see banking kind of move online and the consumer experience transformed. True in fashion with Guild, B2B with IBM, and now CVS Health, where I run marketing, but I also run our digital organization, including all of our engineers and our customer organization, customer insight and advocacy. So that's been one really important principle. How do I kind of sit at the intersection of technology and consumer? The second principle I would say is, I've just been an avid learner my whole career. So the opportunity I've had to really learn about different industries, of course, to bring some expertise in digital and marketing and operations, but to learn about new industries has been phenomenal. And last but not least, I've just had hopefully a little bit of good intuition, but certainly good luck in working with exceptional people. So, just getting to work for really extraordinary bosses and teams. And even when I've been CEO of companies, which I have been, whether it was Travelocity or Guild, having extraordinary boards. So in a nutshell, I think those 3 things have defined my career.
I think you're extremely modest, I must say. But the 2 points certainly that you make in terms of being at the cutting edge of digital and consumer is on the one hand, and the other hand, making learning a significant component and stay current and up to date. That's fascinating. And that's something, the second one particularly is what I have been as well propounding quite a lot. Now, as you very well know my book, and I have been talking about how the world is advancing so significantly from a technology point of view that almost 24 technologies are going to completely disrupt marketing the way we know it. Now, looking back the last probably 3 to 4 years, what significant technological changes have you witnessed that have been impacting marketing in any significant way?
Well, growing up as a digital leader, it was really my first jobs. We're in the digital space. I've had this opportunity to look at this over a longer period of time. So, internet starting transforming travel, the first social sites, the first search sites, the first mobile sites, the first programmatic advertising. Like I've really had this opportunity to be here, through these kind of transitions. And what you learn going through any of these transitions is to really, I think, obviously embrace, and secondly, to really try to think ahead, to think about all the implications down the road. And we're at that same juncture right now. And I would just point out a few things, and I think you talk about these so intelligently in your book. But of course, the first is artificial intelligence. That is remaking how we engage with our consumers in really profound ways. And it's not enough to be a marketer who tries to think about artificial intelligence and maybe even tries a few proof of concepts. The ethic implications, the data implications, the privacy implications, these are really, really critical things. We've seen this time and again, that we can use AI to do extraordinary things. But, for example, if we let AI run to try to figure out which developers are going to succeed in our organization, we've seen this in the past, it will produce a series of white young men as the resumes it recommends, right? Because artificial intelligence, has the ability to change things enormously, but it also has the ability to ingrain and entrench stereotypes and mistakes of the past. So that's one technology that I think is incredibly promising. But the data, the security, the ethics questions are paramount. Who's training the algorithms? How are they evolving? What are the data sources used? How is, so these are really critical questions. We see that with facial recognition, another form of AI that can allow us to identify customers, as they walk into stores. That's happening, today in lots of parts of the world. Really thinking hard as a marketer about some of these ethics and tech questions are critical, and data questions. A second technology that I think is really exciting and profound as well, but again, in a nascent stage, is of course blockchain. And you and I have worked on this as we've, co-chaired the ANA's kind of data and tech. But if you think about it today, so much is wasted in the media supply chain. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but blockchain has the opportunity to really help marketers become more effective and more efficient in their spend.
Yeah, in fact, and I keep always saying that AI is probably the most enabling or the most disruptive technology that is out there that's going to change every facet of the entire marketing value chain. And not just in the B2C context, but also in the B2B context. And things like real time analysis and real time optimization, which probably have been theories till now, are becoming a complete reality. And coupled with automation, I think it's completely changing the game. And I have seen a bunch of examples, both in my own day to day life here at MasterCard, as well as what some of the other leading CMOs and leading companies have been actually doing, including yourself. That's been pretty fascinating. And on the other hand, when you talk about blockchain, Michelle, this is probably one of those technologies which is not very well understood by many folks, and it's often confused for the cryptocurrency, which of course blockchain technology does power it and enable it, but a lot of confusion on it. And I do remember the experiment or pilot that you have done while at IBM together with MediaOcean and Unilever, I believe, right? Which has shown some significant amount of changes in the or other opportunities rather in the advertising value chain. Would you want to just talk about what that whole thing was and what the opportunity is for marketers as we look forward in terms of the efficiencies and efficacies that can be brought into the marketing value chain?
So let's break blockchain down because I agree with you. It really is confusing. And blockchain, at its fundamental core, is a trusted record between a multi-party in any sort of complex supply chain. And so when blockchain originated, not the cryptocurrency side, but it was to say, look, we're going to move supplies from certain parts of the world all the way through. And if you think about that supply chain, so many different ports, so many different raw materials, so many different finished goods, so much manufacturing, super complex supply chain. Could you effectively, in a private way, secure way, access just the information you needed to pass that supply on to the next sort of part of the supply chain in a much more effective and efficient way? And I always like the analogy that when you look at, these kind of shipping freights, there's often a box of paper that accommodates a crate of supply. So all the ports it's been through, all the kind of chain of record. Could you automate and secure that chain of record in almost in a sort of electronic fashion? If you think about really messy supply chains, the media supply chain is really messy. So the analogy holds quite nicely. And it used to be 20, 30 years ago that, Raja, you would go spend $1 for MasterCard, and roughly 80 cents of that dollar would make its way to the publisher to be seen by somebody consuming that media. So, maybe there's 20% efficiency you'd have to pay, the advertising agency, maybe the media company, you pay some tolls along the way. But a lot of what you did made its way to the consumer. Today, that number, as you and I both know well, is like 40, 50%. There are so many more stopping points, the DSPs, the DMPs, the fraud checks. I mean, there's so many complexities in the media supply chain. And the reality is most of us don't understand it at all. And so, it's really hard for a CMO to say, let me understand my end to end. How much of my every dollar I spend is making its way in front of the consumer? And is it trusted? Is it showing up in the places that I want it to show up? Or is this thing gotten so murky and so complex, I don't really control my destiny the way I used to? And the answer for the vast majority of marketers that it is not working in most efficiently and most effectively as it could be. So that is what blockchain, as one example, is trying to solve. And if I were a marketer and I were tackling this question, which I have done it throughout my career, doing the same thing out to Health, I would look at really auditing that entire chain. So along the path of you spending $1, who are all the tolls along the way? And what you mostly find when you do that and you really conduct the forensics on your media spend, there's a lot of immediate savings, nothing to do with blockchain, that you can go after. Do you have, in some cases, we're paying third parties to do things that are actually in our agency contracts if we really scrub it. In some cases, we have multiple DSPs or multiple DMPs that we're not really extracting the value. In some cases, we're not kind of reining in fraud well enough. And so there's a lot of money going out the door. So there's stuff that all of us can do independent of blockchain. Blockchain, I think, will be that more sophisticated technology to help with tracking, reconciliation, and ultimately greater leaps in efficiency. So I and you, as you know, have a white paper coming out soon with the ANA to say, what can marketers do to regain the first 5 cents back, the next 7 cents, the next 5 cents? And it's meaningful. There's over 200 billion in programmatic spend every year in this country. So 5% savings, 10% savings, even going from 40 to 50, 50 to 60, these are tremendous dollars for all of us to take advantage of. So I'm excited. We're early days. There's going to be a lot of learnings here. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't even need complex technology for. But seizing control is a really critical thing for all CMOs.
I totally agree. I think, in fact, probably as technology started getting more and more into the world of marketing, in some sense, the agenda has been taken away from marketers by the technologists. It's not a situation of us versus them, but it is a question of the two not coming together. Marketers, I think they have lost the game quite a bit. And today, forget about even blockchains, even something like a programmatic, you ask many of the CMOs or the senior marketers to genuinely put their hand on their heart and say, do you understand exactly what happens in a programmatic? The answer is no. Yeah. And that's pretty scary. And now when you're getting into so many new technologies coming at us, it's very scary. And blockchain as a concept itself is difficult to understand. Then you got the complex media space itself that is very difficult to understand. What does a DMP do? What does each one of these individuals do? what value they're adding. And to your point, if half of the dollars I, as a marketer, am spending is only going to, or half of what I'm spending is only going to the publisher, that is such a humongous wastage. And blockchain seems to be, even if it makes some positive change, is very critical. And to your other point, which is very important, is it's not just about blockchain. That's one good technology that will bring certain things, but even the basics that people have to go and look at their entire value chain and then audit it and then see what they are getting. Are they leveraging enough? Is there more to be had in each one of these areas? So I think that's a very powerful point that you make, Michelle. Now, along the same lines, if you were to talk about just a couple of other technologies, let's see. There is a lot of buzz around augmented reality. There is a lot of buzz, and there has been a lot of buzz around virtual reality. What's your take on these two? And I know companies like, for example, IKEA have been using augmented reality very well. And then there are a whole bunch of companies who are actually getting into that space. But is it still at this point in time a shiny new toy that people are toying with? Or do you really see a promise and a possibility in those spaces?
Oh, I think they're both super exciting to put, experiences more firmly in control of the consumer. So I think they're both super exciting. But I think like any new technology, it's really important we don't evolve into sort of proof of concept purgatory, where we have like all sorts of interesting proof of concepts blooming all over the place, but not a real strategy for how to harness this for the consumer. And let's just step back for a second to artificial intelligence. The framework I've always used for AI as it relates to marketing is there's three ways I see, at least, that AI can really affect the role of the marketer, the work that we do. The first is it is actually changing how we engage with consumers. So things like intelligent agents and chatbots and AI in our search capabilities, et cetera, we are engaging with consumers in very different ways than ever before. We have the potential to do that, right? That's exciting. Even in advertising, I've seen AI driven ads where you say, hey, I'm a family of four. I'm looking for this kind of car. Safety really matters. I need a big trunk. And you're engaging with an ad that is narrowing the options, giving you different thoughts, presenting you, that's really powerful, not, just a sort of a banner ad, right? And engaging. And imagine as a marketer, all that information you're getting about the consumer and what they really want. So that's the first way. The second way is it's changing what we know about our consumer. So that goes to that point, right? You're collecting so much more data than ever before. You get intent, you get personality, you get tone, you get all sorts of things that we have not had access to as marketers in the past. So there's a huge host of information and insight and data there. So we can create richer profiles of consumers. But last but not least, it's changing how we work. And so the ability to say, look, you do this at MasterCard, we do this in our company, thousands and thousands of campaigns happening all over the place, right? And so how can we help our marketers know what their next best action is? How can we inform our marketers? Look, marketers like you that have struggled with, optimization when somebody lands on your page and conversion when somebody lands on your page, or audiences like you that have struggled with audience targeting, these are the kind of steps you should take, or these are the kind of tips and tricks on how to improve your campaign. So I think AI has the ability to change all three. Much like augmented reality, much like virtual reality, you need to think about the strategy. You need to say, if that's the case, how is it not just a proof of concept here and a proof of concept there, but how would we systemically change our workflows so that we could take advantage of this new technology? Because if I believe something like AI is going to change the way we work, I have to re-engineer the workflow. I have to reimagine the workflow. I have to change, who I believe move to agile squads that are multidisciplinary, because otherwise I won't really capitalize on the technology. So I think, the cultural imperative and the changing the way we work and the strategic framework, the ethics framework, the data framework, these are all really critical aspects alongside the technology framework. So that, I think otherwise you end up doing this cool little thing here and this cool little thing here, but it's not really taking advantage to fundamentally change your position competitively and your position with consumers.
Yeah, in fact, I think chasing the shiny pennies is not the way to go. But on the other hand, I really love the way you have said the purgatory of proof of concepts. I think talking of purgatories, there is also a data purgatory. And combined with other 2 points you make in terms of the data privacy and the consumer responsibility and so on. Today, literally every single device in our homes is connected in some form or fashion. right? Whether it is your toothbrush or whether it is a coffee machine or it is dishwasher or a refrigerator, everything is connected, your thermostat and so on. And it's only going to really become so much more significant. The question is, with so many sensors that are tracking what we are doing and taking the data and putting it in some cloud somewhere, there is a data deluge, literally. And today, already, there's a lot of data which we barely use. And on the other hand, we're going to collect this humongous quantities of data. And on the third level, there are significant concerns. If I have to put myself in the shoes of a consumer, which I am before I'm a marketer, I'm petrified as to what am I being tracked on, where all my data is showing, what all people are making out of it, and is my privacy being compromised? And for marketers, on one hand, it is like Alice in Wonderland with so much of data. What can I do with it? And now powered with AI, you can do so much more. But on the other hand, how do you balance it with this ethics? And regulation is more a reaction, probably a delayed reaction to what's happening in the society. And if you look at companies like Apple and Google, already they are doing away with the ability for advertisers to track, which makes our life as a marketer a little bit more difficult. But what it is right by the consumers on many parts. Give me your take in terms of how do you balance this data equation with the privacy equation?
Yeah, it's a great question, Raja. Not one that there's simple answers to, but here's my recommendation. And all this kind of comes back in some ways to who are the CMOs of the future, and if you think about the past, right, a lot of CMOs grew up as they were creative experts. They were brilliant, with brand and the big idea. And maybe some grew up as kind of product marketers. And those are really important paradigms. Those are fundamentally important aspects of marketing. But the reality is data science and technology are increasingly, very critical skills. And so I kind of go at this in a certain way. First of all, I think there's a sort of framework you have to think about as a decision maker, as a CMO. Does this new technology, we're all used to understanding results, maybe not as good as we should be sometimes as marketers, but we're used to analyzing results. The question is, can you analyze data privacy and ethics alongside those things? So what if every time, we were launching a new technology or launching a new capability or looking at things, we had that conversation with ourselves. Are we really sure how the data is being used? Are we clear, where the consumer's data may show up somewhere else? Do we understand if AI is involved, what some of the sort of training algorithms have been and the ethics questions that arise? I think it's a fascinating question. And a matter of fact, I asked myself this question profoundly as social media sites were coming on board. And I've probably been more conservative than most in participation because I didn't fundamentally understand the entire chain of data. And that always really concerned me when I thought about, as a steward of customer data. So I don't think there's a black and white answer. I'm not sure we're always having the right conversation though. So that's I think the fundamental question. Can we as marketers, as CMOs, and with our chief privacy officers, with our data officers, with our technology teams, can we just have more of those conversations? And it's okay to, raise the alarm that like, you know what, I really don't know. I mean, I think some of this is, it feels embarrassing, right? It feels embarrassing to your point, if you don't fully understand the programmatic chain, or if you don't fully understand, how data kind of gets ingested and passed through all that. But I think having the courage and the humility to raise the question, to ask the why, how, question a bunch of times, we'll start setting an example. And maybe it's a little Socratic, but we'll start setting an example for the teams that come after us that, this is a very fundamental responsibility of the new breed of chief marketing officer.
Privacy first and consumer first, indeed. Absolutely. Michelle, one of the key things is, which I keep talking about, and you and I had multiple discussions before on this very topic, is in terms of the existential crisis that marketing is in many ways. The 4 Ps of marketing that we learned long back is all now fragmented and distributed to different parts of the company. And marketing doesn't handle all those. On the one hand, some of the CMO roles are actually disappearing. And here it is that we are all saying that there's a deluge of technologies that is going to come at us, and that's going to change the world, for marketers even more significantly. And then you have got the regulations and the privacy concerns that are coming, which are going to put a few more hurdles for marketers to do their jobs. And lastly, probably the last straw, I would say, is where surveys that have been done among CEOs have shown that more than 70% of the CEOs have expressed that they do not have confidence in their CMOs or in their marketing teams to be able to drive growth, which I think is a disaster. Now, given this kind of an exciting scenario, why should a marketer, why should a youngster join marketing? And you would remember the survey that was done by ANA amongst students of colleges, and marketing was sadly ranking way down in terms of the kind of field that they would like to pursue, even below nursing and accounting. I have nothing against nursing or accounting, but it horrifies me that marketing is being rated even below accounting as a preferred career. Whereas, during the days, 1,000 years back when I did my MBA, marketing was the number one field that people would aspire to get into. It was challenging, it was glamorous, it was fun, it was cool, it was a whole bunch of things, and it was meaningful and purposeful too. So, therefore, in those days, it was very easy that if you are decent at your academics, you would gravitate towards marketing. Now, in this day and age, what would be the reason why you think a youngster has to even look at marketing as a career?
Well, look, beside that doom and gloom, Raja, I mean, it's a Monday morning. We've got to be more optimistic here. But, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee after this. But here's the thing. I think in some ways we went through a little bit of the sort of valley of death on this one, right? We're transitioning from the era of the big creative idea into marketing as driver of growth. So I think we absolutely sort of, I wouldn't say lost our way, but in some ways let the world kind of move faster than we did. But now, it is an extraordinary career for the next generation that is defining what marketing is. We're in a period of redefinition of the role. We're in a period of redefinition of the tools, redefinition of the capabilities. And I think for that next generation, that it leans into data science, that leans into technology, that loves still having purpose and the big idea. I mean, it's kind of that really fundamental opportunity. There are some fields that are really just creative, and there are some fields that are really just, analytical or technical. Marketing will be the discipline that bridges those. Marketing will be the place that people who are, left brain and right brain can make an extraordinary difference. And that's, I think, really the promise of what marketing is. Now, if you're somebody who just loves the creative or just loves the data science analytical, maybe there are other paths for you, right? But if you're somebody who is passionate, as you and I are, about bridging those worlds, about being able to see sort of the night sky from both the analytical perspective and the creative perspective, it's a fascinating time. I would say marketers more than ever have to work their way back from the financial results to sort of the sales results to the marketing results. And I think it's a very, very critical skill set that marketers have to develop in partnering really closely with finance to do the right multi-touch attribution models, to really understand the physics of a dollar spend and the impact on the company. And so I think, great marketers blazing the trail in terms of really demonstrating how marketing contributes to a company's revenue growth. So it's, if you're somebody who likes change, if you like charting the future, if you like, redefining, there's certainly a lot more potential here than in accounting.
Yeah, I think you did absolutely so spot on. And I keep talking about the marketers being like Leonardo da Vinci's with both the hemispheres of the brain working together in tandem. But also, I think the other two dimensions which would also be relevant is probably there are not too many functions which can make the kind of societal difference or the impact to the society as much as marketing can do, because we understand communities, we understand people, individuals as well as groups, and we know what matters to them, and we are able to bring the purpose of the company to life through the marketing campaign. And it's so gratifying, it's so fulfilling to be in that kind of a profession. And it's a noble profession, far from being wrongly perceived as being a con game or a manipulative craft, which it is not. It is not meant to be that way. And now the other question I wanted to ask you is, you are holding a gigantic role at CVS, and I'm sure it's more than 24/7 in terms of how do you manage to balance your life with your family, with your kids, etc., and also keep up with your learning, because I know you're one of those few CMOs who are really at the cutting edge, and that being at the cutting edge doesn't happen by itself.
Yeah.
They're obviously doing something right to stay ahead. So if you can just give some insights into how you manage your life from that perspective, and it'll also serve as an inspiration and advice for other folks to derive something out of.
Great. Well, first of all, some days I'm horrible at it. So you got to be graceful with yourself, right? You have to be generous with yourself. Like I'm a mom of and a wife and a board member at Nike and community groups. So managing my time is really important. And honestly, above all else, being a great mom, number one most important thing for me. So I would just say a couple things. One, I've gotten this may be the only place I use the word ruthless, but I've gotten ruthless with how I use my time over the years. For instance, when back in the day when we used to be on planes, I'm someone who hates paper. I hate, I'm like, but in this case, I would have my assistant print out my calendar from the past few months. And I would send in the plane and say, okay, these are the outcomes I want to achieve in my personal life, my professional life, with my community service. And am I using my time to advance that? Or am I using my time poorly? And inevitably on those flights, I would send a note, I don't need to be on that steering committee anymore. I think this person could do that instead of me. I am spending a lot of time on this thing. I need a different talent strategy to help me achieve what we're trying to achieve, because what we're doing right now isn't working. I'm spending, a tremendous amount of time and I'm not feeling like we're getting there. So I think, and that's important. I've always been very, very rigorous with leaving the office at sort of 5:36. When the kids were younger, it was even a little bit earlier. And then, when they go to bed, getting back online for a few hours at night, because I've always wanted to do dinner and homework. And bedtime with the kids. Now that they're 11 and 12, they're sometimes I'm far asleep faster than they are. So they're putting themselves to bed. But that, showing up for those things that matter and being purposeful about those things that matter has always been really important to me. So, but look, and then on the learning agenda side, I'm just a voracious reader. I really can't fall asleep at night without, reading. I, use my time when I'm getting ready in the morning with a great Audible book. I'm listening to the Isaacson book right now on the code breaker and gene editing. I've done, 5 or 10 just fascinating Audible books, in the past couple months. And so that's, really great time for me. So I just think it's about using your time well. And I would add 2 last odds. I love that my kids see I'm learning. My kids have seen me do, courses on Kubernetes and containerization and hybrid cloud sort of fabric. They've watched me do that, and they've watched me test at the dinner table. They're doing their homework, I'm doing mine, and so I like that my kids are growing up and with seeing mom who's sort of struggling and trying to learn new things and really complex concepts. And then the last thing I would just say is, you got to be sort of forgiving of yourself. I always say grit and grace. You need the grit and the tenacity, the resilience, but you need the grace, because there's plenty of times when I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally screwed that up, or I forgot the class parent thing I was supposed to remember. And so I think just being real and authentic and forgiving about it, and maybe human and vulnerable, even with your work colleagues, for me, that's always been really important. So as many times as I get it right, I probably get it wrong, and so just knowing it's a journey helps.
It is absolutely amazing, and I kudos to you, and I applaud you for how you juggle all these different, parts that you play, both on the personal side, on the board side, on the community side, and of course your day job, and on top of it, the learning as well. It's pretty fascinating. Maybe you should write a book one day on how exactly to do it, and it'll be a guide and inspiration to anyone. And if you need a ghost writer, I'm here there for you. So the other thing I wanted to ask you was, if you look at your, all these spheres outside of this, what are some of your passions? Just to get an insight into who you are, for our audience, it'll be wonderful for them to know. So, what are your passions outside of work, board, community, and family?
Well, I mean, family is a passion, right? Being a great mom, and I think it is hard as a mom to sort of disconnect at times, and especially with my job, right? I have a huge job that I'm really, really passionate about. It's a new industry for me. We're in the middle of COVID. We're vaccinating Americans. Like, there's a lot going on at CVS Health. And so, but I still really try hard to make sure there's those times that are just kind of screen free and you're just truly deeply engaged with your children. And hopefully I'm just fun, silly things. So that is, that's important to me. I have a very big group of girlfriends. And so there are 16 of us that travel every year. We have a place down in Amelia Island that come with me, and it's sort of our annual girls trip. And cultivating female friendships, friendships period, but female friendships has been an incredible gift for me. The sort of built-in network of sisters beside my own sister who, have kind of shaped my life in those hard moments, right? In those challenges, like all the times I do get it wrong. It's an amazing group of women and very successful and very funny women, I would say, to bounce things off of. I love running. We love traveling. We like skiing, gardening. I sort of absolutely love gardening and getting fresh, veggies every night to our dinner table in the summer. So those are some of the things that be, a bit more meditative for me outside the day job. But I don't want to present myself as like sort of perfect on this, because most days I feel like I got it wrong. So always more to learn.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Now, you have been in CVS for now, 3 months or 4 months?
Been 5, actually.
It's already 5. Time flies. Time really flies. Now, as you look forward to the next 12 months, what would be a couple of your key priorities of what you're trying to accomplish at CVS?
Yeah. That's pretty straightforward. So first, of course, it's the brand. It's an incredible time for the CVS Health brand. We've been so meaningful in people's lives, both in testing and vaccination. So really establishing ourselves, Karen Lynch, our CEO, is extraordinary as sort of America's healthcare brand. Secondly, driving revenue growth. So all these technologies, these capabilities, agile teams, but making sure we're driving revenue growth. Third, leading in a digital world. I have a very large digital organization, including all the engineering teams. So whether we're showing up for apps for chronic care condition, for CVS.com, for e-commerce, for testing, for vaccines, we have to have a flawless, extraordinary set of digital capabilities that allows us to lead in a digital world, an increasingly digital world. Integrated telehealth and physical care. These are all major priorities for us on the digital side. Fourth, consumer centricity. So I lead the teams on the insight and advocacy, establishing NPS across the entire company, acting on feedback and improving. So we increasingly drive promoters and for people to be more satisfied and more willing to expand their relationship with us. And last but not least, the most engaged, agile, diverse, and inclusive team that loves to learn. That's the team mission, right? So I would say those are the lots underneath each of those, but those are the 5 anchors for me in my new role. And what an incredible time to be doing it in healthcare, an industry that means so much to each of us personally, and that the past year has told us, is sort of in the middle of transformation.
And it's so meaningful and so purposeful. It's absolutely I guess, a privilege to be in a role that you are in and to be able to make the difference that you're aspiring to. But just to follow up clarification, so you do an NPS amongst your internal audiences. Did I hear you right?
External. So we are instrumenting all of our consumer touch points that matter, our moments that matter, with Net Promoter Score. We do a lot of that today, but we're really looking to make it, and I often say this, but it's almost like a religion, right? That we are not just, putting it in place to look at the score, but putting in place to change a culture, to be responsive to consumers, to follow up on their feedback, and to change the things that pervasively can create a stronger, better CVS Health company. So we're in the middle of that transformation, and having done it before, it's a super exciting one.
Got it. And the second follow-up question I had was, in order to equip your team, how do you ensure that they are sort of being prepped and really positioned for the future in the most enabled fashion?
Yeah, well, these are all big change management, opportunities and times. And so I believe that the best marketing teams are agile teams that are really thoughtful and careful about the disciplines on the agile team. And when I say agile, I don't mean it as like an adverb, I mean it as a noun, that they truly practice agile technology, sort of agile methodology. So agile does get adapted from software engineering methodology to marketing. But once you make that transformation, and it really takes time because you have to bring all your marketed along. You have to be very clear on the disciplines. You have to be very clear on what the outcomes are for each of the different agile teams, that their mission. There's a lot of training and education involved. There's a lot of change management. You don't need as many middle managers. Us senior managers have to change dramatically in the way we behave. But when you go on that transformation, you find a couple things. One, you find the return on marketing dollars goes up. You find employee engagement goes up, and you find that learning agility goes up. And so those are things I'm very passionate about. And so, it does, really take time, and it's a really critical, you can't just kind of say you're going to do it. It's a long-term commitment. But it's one that we have just started some pilots here at CVS Health, having done this before. I'm confident, but we're starting some pilots at CVS Health, and early feedback has been really strong. So assuming those continue to go well, we'll be rolling out Agile as a methodology to all of our marketers, to help us with that learning and engagement and sort of culture change that I think we need to take advantage of the era we're in, and the data and technology that that we have the opportunity to harness.
All the very best to you, Michelle, on this exciting journey that you're on. And I once again sincerely want to thank you for taking time on a Monday morning to be on this LinkedIn Live program. Thank you so very much. And to the audience who are watching it, thank you so much. And this is all being recorded, and it'll be put on LinkedIn Live, or LinkedIn rather, and hopefully you all can watch it. It'll be very helpful if you can share your thoughts, feedback, comments, so that I can incorporate those into the future programming that we'll be doing, because I do have intention of getting a number of industry leading CMOs like Michelle herself, and some of the CEOs and some academicians and some such subject matter experts in the coming few weeks and months. So any feedback from me will be most helpful. And at the end of the day, you need to find it valuable. And it's my endeavor to make it as valuable to you and as relevant to you as possible. So with that, thank you very much. And Michelle, again, thank you so very much, and have a great week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. It's been a privilege always to work with you. Take care and talk to you soon.